seeing
Yeah,
it.
we have, I mean, the authors that are coming this year in particular are, I mean, we've had great authors all along, but this year in particular, we have some really big name authors coming. Tanya James's book was recognized by pretty much everyone as one of the must reads of summer. So it's really fun to have a book that's just newly released and have the author coming, as part of the release. I think the New York Times this weekend just put it in as one of the top 25 books of summer. So like, it feels very current. And then CJ Hauser, kind of in contrast, her book came out, I think in 21, but was so successful and so popular that the paperback just came out like a few weeks ago. So that book has had a really like long legs, has won a bunch of awards, and has just picked up steam since it was released. So one of them I feel like has the sort of novelty, something very new and very exciting that's getting a lot of press right now. And the other is one that has gotten a lot of attention over the last 2 years. And so together, I think it's a really fun pairing for fall. Yeah, that's sort of what I bring to the organization. So because my background is writing and I am a professor of writing and literature, I have sort of connections to that world that seems relevant to bringing literary authors to the Eastern Shore. So that's sort of why I decided to start Shorelit, was because I had this sort of unique way to bridge our culture here on the Eastern Shore and, the literary and publishing world, elsewhere. So that was sort of the point. Well, I feel very lucky that Sarah Jesse started as the director of the museum here in Easton, the Academy Art Museum, about 2 years ago. And her perspective on I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn and put words in her mouth, but I think in summary, what her perspective is that programming outside of strict curatorial programming, just art on the walls, is really important for any museum, especially museum in sort of a small community like ours. So she has been really encouraging of hosting these events. And I started as a community programmer for the museum. She recruited several people within the community to bring programs to the museum. My background, of course, being writing and literature, I really wanted to bring that to Easton. And it's one thing, I feel like one of the reasons I moved here, I had been in cities most of my adult life. One of the reasons I moved here to the Eastern Shore is because despite us having like a very small, tight-knit community, we have incredible cultural resources between the museum and the Avalon Theater, community theater, the college in Chestertown, as far as Salisbury. There's a lot going on on the Eastern Shore. So that was really exciting to me. One piece I felt or have found to be missing is adult literary programming. There's great stuff for kids, but there's not, outside of the Lit House at Washington College, there's not really a lot of consistent programming for adults. So when Sarah gave me the option to design a program for the museum, my first thought was, well, what if we could combine, like a really relevant literature with what's happening in museums. So that's how it started. And after that first event, I felt we had a really strong attendance. I curated the program, meaning I like put everything together, kind of produced it. And I worked with Rihanna Almacar Scott, who's a short story writer. He writes, a lot of short fiction about an imagined town in Maryland, started by freed slaves. And it's not real. The characters aren't real, but he imagines this place. So I paired him in a panel with Dale Green, who of course does, a lot of research on the actual free Black communities in Maryland, and the Star Center. So the combination of those three experts was really powerful. There are about 100 people at the event, which was a really strong, dynamic event. And it brought, I think, new people together. It was people were sharing ideas across what they were already familiar with, which is all, as an educator, of course, that's so exciting to see. So it was a really powerful event, I think, from everyone's perspective. And I, decided that there was enough community interest that it would be worth it to try it for a year and see if I could bring more? Would people show up? Would there be excitement about it in the community? And so, yeah, at the end of a year, we did 8 events, I think, 8 author events, which is a lot, which is a lot to pull off, but they were really well attended. And beyond just attendance too, the feedback that I've gotten from the community is that um, it was like genuine excitement. And I think it's enriching people's lives. So that, that's the point, of course. So that feels really good and makes it worth it for me. I'm a volunteer. There's no like quote job in here for me in terms of any money. So it's like, it's really about, is this worth it? Is our community benefiting from it? And if so, great, let's keep going. So that's what we're heading into year 2 with. So I think that one of the really important things about Shorelit is that we are really focused on gathering as a community. So it goes beyond the content. It's about bringing people together. And you may have had a chance to look at the 1-year video we did. Yeah, and so one of my favorite things about that video is that I reached out to community members, people who are invested in some way in arts and culture in the community, to ask them why they think it matters that we gather. And their responses were very moving. At the end of the day, I think, Lydia Wolver, who's an editor at Baltimore Magazine and lives in Chestertown, she said it really well. Gathering is how we actualize as a community, right? Like community as a concept until you actually come together and sit in a room with somebody who may have different ideas or a different experience from you and listen. A good, arts and culture can do that really well. It can provide a space for people to engage with ideas without necessarily, confrontation or conflict. And it provides a more discursive and reflective space. And so conversation is really important because of course, half of conversation is listening, right? And so that provides a different kind of, engagement than opinion-based writing or, debate or reactive kind of emotional responses to what's happening in the news. It's a different way to engage, complicated ideas that doesn't necessarily thrive on conflict. And so I think people are ready to go kind of deeper, like I think people are, some people who show up to these kinds of events, I guess, are ready to, think a little bit deeper and a little bit more slowly about ideas that are being presented in their complexity. So my focus this year is really on reaching new audiences. I've worked with the museum in the past, the Talbot County Free Library, and this year I'm hoping to partner with new organizations that I haven't worked with before. So we have an event I'm really excited for coming up in February of 24 with Adkins Arboretum and the Avalon. The three of us are partnering to bring David Haskell, who's a Pulitzer Prize nominated nature writer, to the Stoltz Room at the Avalon, which would be a really special experience. His most recent book is about the sounds in nature, wild sounds, and the Stoltz is perfectly set up to experience the recordings that he'll be there to play, and he's a great speaker. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm doing with Salisbury University and Washington College Lit House. I'm doing an event again at the Avalon in November that's going to feature student writers, student authors. So that's a really exciting kind of new direction for us too. So yeah, as kind of looking at the next year, without increasing the number of events, I'm hoping to connect with new audiences who may have, either kind of a content focus, like, there are a lot of environmental and nature focused groups in our area, and new ages, new demographics, to connect over literature and keep the conversation going.